Lisa Brown. Lisa Brown is, I was going to say back with us, Lisa, but this is actually going to air before your next episode, your first episode we recorded together. So you're technically back with me, but this is the first time that my listeners will be hearing from you, Lisa, and I'm excited to share that episode with them. But this month is all about 2023 focusing on me. And so I wanted to talk all about the work you do because I think it's amazing and I think it's so necessary for us and women in general. So why don't you introduce us a little bit? I know, sorry, I totally took you down the introductory path in that other episode, but introduce yourself again and how you ended up in this field.
Okay, well, thanks, Gina, for having me. I'm excited to be here again. Let's see. So a little bit about me. I've always been active in athletics and I've always had a competitive drive, right? So I was a collegiate cheerleader. My husband was a collegiate football player. We were 20 years in the Air Force, moving around the country, mother of 6. So maybe 28 years plus in group exercise and personal training. My degree's in exercise science, and I have a minor in nutrition, and then just multiple certifications with, you name it, just all through the fitness industry, senior fitness, weight loss, kickbox. I could just go over all of them. Anyways, so basically during the pandemic, what took me down the path to the mindset coaching was I was seeing clients and we were still doing the same type of work, but the mind just was shifted, right? Like they're like, I don't know what's going on. I don't feel good. I'm doing the same things. And so that took me down the path of just diving in a little bit more of the mindset coaching. So I went down to San Diego a couple times and did a couple levels of mindset coaching. And I'm not a therapist. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a psychologist or a doctor, right? I don't give advice. I just facilitate the brain balancing, and we'll get a little bit into that later on. But is that
yes,
what you were thinking?
Yes,
okay.
I love it. When you said that brought you to this path when we were talking about your military experience, and where did that start?
With the mind?
Yeah.
Well,
just for me, just curious.
Yeah. When we had moved, so our last duty station was in South Carolina, and then we moved here to Southern Utah. And my husband opened up a unit for junior ROTC in the high school program. And it was a huge shift for our family. And I started experiencing it was harder than the military moves, if you can believe that. I can't explain it. It was just, I knew we were going to be here for a while, and that was hard for me. So after a year or two, I was getting antsy and shifty, and I just was like, what is going on? And plus, this is where my husband went to high school. His parents are here. I created a story in my head of what I had to look like. What if I ran into one of his old girlfriends, or what did that town look like that I was going to? I didn't know St. George. So honestly, I took that journey. I got pretty sick, right? Physically, and we'll get into, I went through all different modalities and cleansing and trying to look good, and then going to make sure my face looked good. I just went through all these different areas of, I've got to be this perfect person, transitioning out of the military into this civilian life as a spouse. And so that was challenging when we moved here, because I don't know, I created this image of what I needed to be. And it's so funny because everything that drove that was external. So I guess the first time I was introduced into the mindset coaching was I had a friend that had talked to me a little bit about it because I kept telling her, I have got this back pain on my right side and it just, I know what to do. My background is exercise science and stretching and yoga and nutrition, and it will not go away. So the first session that I had doing a brain balance was I had to remove a block. I had no idea what was going on. It was extremely overwhelming. I never really knew how to tap in to what the initial problem was. But as we began to talk in that session, she says, do you feel that pain come on and off? Is there certain times? And we started digging in a little bit deeper, and it was one of my boys, like when he would come in the room, or because there was a lot of tension with that child at that time. This was, yeah, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. So we focused on that. I did a brain balance on that and set an action to it for the week. And it was something like my action with him was to touch him once a day and compliment him or whatever. And then slowly that back pain began to diminish. You have to see it to believe it. You have to go through the process because, you hear a lot of people say, if you just do this or just do that, everything goes away. I mean, it's a process. It's like peeling back an onion. But that was the first time I felt like I feel some relief physically. And it was at that point that I thought, I want to do this because I didn't realize the mind-body connection. It's physical pain can be caused through emotional blocks. I had no idea. So
I have a friend who's experiencing the same thing right now, and I'm trying to think if I've had a physical manifestation. I think our stress absolutely gives us physical manifestations, whether or not we know it and whether or not we connect it to stress, right? Because you can go around, I say it all the time, you can go around thinking you've got everything handled and managed and not feel stress, even though you're rushing to the next thing and rushing to the next thing. You might not think to yourself, I feel stress, but your body does. Your body, your subconscious, your body feels that stress. And especially when you're not sleeping well, you're not eating well, you're putting that kind of stress on your body anyway. And then so it will manifest in ways. So, but what I was hearing you say, and I'm going back to this. It's so funny, you guys. I'm so sorry. We already recorded this episode that's not coming out yet. You've got to go listen to it. It's amazing. But you absolutely flipped your narrative where you were thinking about travel as and these new destinations and moving all the time. Remember, you were thinking about fear as exhilarating, as exciting, as a new adventure. And then for you to feel like you were coming here and it was the end of it and you were going to be here for X amount of time, it was infinite, right? You started flipping the narrative and making it such a scary thing. You gave fear control. Isn't that interesting that you did that? From something that you were so good at looking at as an adventure, you kind of flipped it and it was like, oh no, wait a minute, this is going to be bad. And you started putting all of these unattainable expectations on yourself. And it's absolutely manifested physically because it was making you sick. Mm-hmm. Isn't that crazy? That's so amazing.
It's a real thing. It's like, and I'd hear people say, oh, especially being in the fitness industry, Lisa, you're always in shape. Lisa, you can do this, or, you're so this. And that's their reality outside in. My reality inside is so much different. And I guess the point is, who are we living for? Is it that external vision that we see? Is it other people? Or are we really wanting to be authentic within? And so that's the path I wanted to take. And so that brings me to talking about I dove into the mind, right? We have a subconscious and a conscious mind. I don't know if you want me to start
Yeah, give it to
down
me.
that path,
Give it to
but
me, just wherever you feel like this needs to go. So, listeners, we just heard from Leah, and I just sent Lisa this episode as well so she can hear it, because basically Leah and Lisa are on opposite. Lisa works with the, what do you call it? The neurological, the neural.
we reprogram the subconscious programs
So
in the
it's like the
mind. So
nervous system versus
yeah,
the physical or the.
yes. So you've got your,
Anyway,
we
Leah
talked about
deals
the
with
fight or
the,
flight. Yeah.
yeah, Leah deals with the minerals and the, that for your body, whereas Lisa, they're opposites. So one's the brain work and one's the body work, right? So I'm really excited for you to listen to that episode. But yes, go ahead, just jump in wherever you want to start, and I will just ask questions.
Okay. Yeah. There's so much to it, but just in a general sense, the conscious mind, it's our thinking mind, right? We decide. That's the place where we make conscious decisions, right? The subconscious mind, its job is to store and pull a bunch of data that influences how we think, and how we behave. So this happens without us even being aware. So 95% of the day is ran. I think I talked about this with your girls at the retreat. 95% of our day is ran by the subconscious mind. 5% is ran by the conscious mind. If you think about that, how exhausting would it be to constantly think how to drive to your studio or how to get to carpool line, or right? Those are subconscious programs that just, it might take a minute to learn. Like when we would move to a new town, I would consciously look at where I was driving, and then over time it was just a subconscious programming. That would be exhausting if we ran off the conscious mind at 95%. There's just no way would be able to do that.
That's a huge amount.
Huge amounts. So if you think about consciously, it's just 5%. Like, for example, you tell yourself, you have a fresh new day. Today I will not yell, consciously, right? I say that because my kids will tell you yeah. So I would start fresh, right? I will not yell today. Consciously, it's right there. But how long can we live and do all these different things without at the forefront? It doesn't happen, right? And so that's what the subconscious mind, I like to look at it like, if it's a little bit so we have all these subconscious programs. And how did they come about? I mean, it starts back from baby. So much data is just being filed in, and we've got back from, I used to always be like, why do people talk about their childhood and have to tap back into something so far that has already happened? Why is it coming back up? Because that's part of our filing system. Like that makes the map of who we are. All those experiences are just put into that subconscious programming. So that was really interesting to me to go back and look at that with, what kind of household did you grow up in? Was there yelling? Yes, there was in my house, and so things like that. But let's just say that you don't consciously, you're like, I don't like some of these things that just happen, right? So subconscious programs may look like, let's take a car. I use a car and a computer. Let's just take a car today. So you have a car that's just a little bit out of alignment, and you take your hands off the wheel and it just kind of turns to the left a little bit. Not too bad. So you just keep going. You notice it, but it's drivable. You're fine. Over time, it keeps going to the left further, and pretty soon the wheels, the steering wheel starts to shake, and it's just out of control. You put your brakes on and it's shaking violently off the freeway. So over time it gets worse. Well, I like to think about the brain. The brain gets better at producing, disempowering thoughts. Like, it becomes hypersensitive after a while. So if we're out of alignment a little bit, let's say that I didn't start yelling until I had 3 kids, or so, 3 or 4, right? So it just heightens over years or whatever. Because I don't remember being a yeller with my first
That's the
few
same for
kids.
me. That's weird.
Yeah.
That is super
Okay.
weird that you just said that.
So you think about the program, right? So I knew I didn't want that in my home. So I came into that marriage and as motherhood, this will not be happening. And so I was very conscious about that. But then as the stressors came and over time and more babies, I became a little bit more hypersensitive to that. And so I'm thinking about this car, right? So it's starting to get a little bit worse. And then we get triggered from just everyday normal stressors that constitute a yell. And you're thinking, why? So it's so out of control to where, so if we're not paying attention to it, it the negative cycle begins and it gets quicker each time, if that makes sense.
Oh,
And it
yeah.
could take, yeah, and it could take a couple years. So I like to think of that alignment, and visualize what the car does over time.
Rick actually brings this point up to me. I don't know where he heard it. We've done, I mean, and we haven't done good work yet. We're getting into doing good work in our marriage right now. Finally, 16 years later, woohoo, but he heard this somewhere and I love it and I hate it at the same time. And it's like, okay, you have this, your husband, and you have this fight, right? And before you fight about this thing and it takes you 2 hours to have this fight and get into it. Well, then a month later, you have the same fight and it takes maybe only an hour, 45 minutes, Well, 16 years later, we can literally have a fight in 30 seconds because
Yeah.
I know exactly what he's going to say. He knows exactly what I'm going to say. And so we're instantly just to the end of the fight telling each other, yep, you're going to call me this name. We're going to yell about this. I'm going to tell you you're a jerk, whatever. We can instantly have the same fight that 16 years ago took us 2 hours to have. Now we can have in 30 seconds. And so it's quicker. It's like you're saying, it's on the surface.
Exactly. And the other thing, maybe you two are asking the question, how's that going for us, that 2 hour fight? It's literally exhausting. I've been there with confrontation with a spouse or a child, hours. And there's different personalities to that, right? You've got a spouse or a child that likes to dig in and hit every detail. You've got a personality that's like pushes back. You've got people that don't want to talk. There's so many different personalities to that. So I guess the question I like to ask clients is, how's that working out for you? How's that going? So that's a good question to ask. But so that negative cycle, I think I talked about the 17-second feedback loop with you gals, but let's just talk about the fight or flight for a second. So, and that's where the nervous system comes in, but you have a stress or a trigger, right? And it could be a person, it could be an event, it could be physical pain, whatever it is. There's a trigger that starts, and then it activates like your emotional, your subconscious brain. So you're going to go back to a program. It's going to send some stress hormones now. So here we go with the hormones. You're going to focus on thoughts and emotions around all of the negative, right? The stress. And then that brain's going to feed you validation to why you're going to stay in that loop. Hey, we like to rationalize and feel okay to be where we're at, right? So I am so validated to be here, right? And so again, that's sending more stress hormone, even though we think we're calming ourselves down by saying, I have the right to be in this. And then the fight or flight just continues. And it is so hard on the body. In fact, I think it was Joe Dispenza. He said, I think it was 70%. Let me see what he said. It's really fascinating. 70% of life, people are living in one of two things: fear or survival. That's a high number. And I've been there. I have to, again, if I don't balance and say, okay, what's going on? If I don't take care of the root problem, it's going to come back and it's going to come back and it's going to come back. So I don't want to live in fear. I don't want to live in a survival mode. But but we do a lot of the times. Just as like you were saying, being a mom and having all these things to do and getting to work and
All our tabs are open.
yeah, all of that. So anyways, with that, the brain, its job is like to protect you, to come back to homeostasis. What can I do to get myself back to a neutral ground, right? So like, and that's where we talk about, and I'm not saying self-care is super important, but sometimes people go to comfort food. They'll go to a stimulant. I have to have my 4 cups of coffee by noon, or right. We go to things that try to pull us back into a homeostasis so we can even function. That's a neutral position where we can, we think we're making good decision making at that point. We may take a bath, supplements, all these things are super important. Have you ever gone, and I have, to go get a massage, and it's absolutely incredible. You come back into the same environment and you're just tensed right back up. And it's like, I'm trying to do all this self-care, which is important. And I don't want to say that it's not, because I do get massages. I do take supplements. I take baths. I do yoga. I exercise. I rest. But
what you're saying is you've got to get the thing under the thing under the thing. You've got to figure out what's there first, or else it's just going to keep coming back.
Yes, yes. You will never.
Well, that's what Leah actually did just talk about this in the physical sense of that, is if you think that you're fixing your, say, progesterone, you're fixing your progesterone, you're fixing your progesterone. So that's all you're focusing on. You think that you're fixing that. Well, you're not just supplementing this to just fix that one problem. Well, why was it off in the first place? That's what she talks about. Why was it off in the first place? So you're going to fix this one problem, but then your body's going to go, well, no, I'm still here. I was messing that up for a reason. This is the problem. This is the problem. So you stopped looking into it because you thought you were fixing this problem, and now your body's going to manifest it somewhere else. So the same is with the mind. If you don't fix the root, it's going to come back and manifest somewhere else.
So yeah, that's a great point. I mean, we may think that we're protecting ourselves, or, the brain doesn't need protection. What it needs is rewiring, so that's a hard thing. And so a lot of time in the mindset coaching, so we're here to treat the brain, but then as you do that and rewire and refire new neural pathways, the physical's involved obviously with that. And then you may come in with like back pain, like I did. But what was I doing? I had a little bit of relief on the back pain, but I also developed a different relationship with that son. So I was starting to soften towards him, right? So it wasn't just the back pain. Everything's intertwined in our lives. So I work with a lot of athletes and women particularly. And there was one female athlete I was working with, and it was funny because we started out with her just wanting to win a race, but when we got finished with our session, it was her trying to accept that her dad had this major crisis with the family, and that's what it was about. How could that be about your sport? But once that was released, she removed the block and was able to push forward and train better. So it's like, don't just think it's one thing. Like Leah was saying, I need to go and listen to that. But it's not just, if I take these supplements, my life will be good. I would pay attention to that and say, yes, that's important. But I would also say, ask yourself, what does my program look like? How are things going? I have a lot of questions I like to ask. One, does your environment control you? That's a good question to start asking ourselves.
That's a great question.
So
I'm writing it down.
Yeah, a second one, I'll just give you 3. A second one is, do we need the outer world to feel? right? So we're talking about external and internal. And so this mindset coaching, this brain balancing is inner work.
Well, was
And
that one? Do we
so
need the external
do
world
we,
to heal?
do we need the outer world to feel, right? So like phones and social media, to be validated, to feel, right? Am I a good person? Let me go check my feed.
Oh,
Oh,
do I
yeah,
have all the likes? Do I have all these
yeah.
engagements of everybody saying, "Oh, you're so amazing"?
Which is great, but that's an external, right? So we're
Yeah.
looking more inward. And then maybe another one, are you willing to create your future in the unknown? So when we tap into these sessions, I ask my clients to be open and to be curious. Because if you come in closed and hard and external, it's very difficult to do the work. And some people aren't, at the space to come in and do the work. But then I would ask, well, what are you doing and how's it going for you? And we may feed ourselves in that loop. It's fine. Why? Because I'm in control and I don't want to change this program. I am in control, but are you? Are your children okay? Is your husband okay? What does it mean to have a happy, functioning family? Like we're we're happily dysfunctional. I would say in my family, but the thing is, and that's what I had to learn coming here to Southern Utah was, oh my goodness, our faith is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so outside of Utah, we were the minority of faith on the East Coast and in the South predominantly. And it was amazing and we loved it. And my best friends are Catholics and Baptists and non-denominational, and, ran into atheists that I just love. And so coming here, I felt like, what does that look like? I was so external when I came here. It just wasn't even funny. And, like we talked about in the episode prior that your listeners will get to, I had a great experience in the Air Force. But I'm happy to be here because I don't think I would have learned these things. And this was the place I needed to learn to tap into that subconscious mind and reprogram. Like, to me, if I hear someone say that's just the way I am, my alarms go off, right? Because I think there's no room for growth when people say, I'm hardwired that way and I will always be this way. So that's why I love the work, because I actually just get people coming to me that are ready. I don't go and solicit. I don't go, I just say, hey, if you're interested, because people usually come to me after yoga. Oh, I'm having this issue or this issue, or an athlete or something. Then we start talking and they're like, I'm interested. I'm interested in my mind. What's going on? What we tell the mind, it literally believes. It's just so powerful and we don't understand. So if you can just keep in mind that subconscious mind is running 95% of our day.
Do you know what I just wrote down and you made me think of, and it triggered it for me, and I'm wondering about you as well, because we both are so traveled and we did love it, I love it. I'm still loving it, but I'm wondering if the reason that you and I both feel like travel is such an adventure, is exciting, is exhilarating. Most people look at it like, ick. I have a friend that tells me all the time, she's like, I love that for you. I would never want to do that, right? But I'm wondering if part of that is because I wrote, do I love travel because I don't have to be vulnerable? So I'm wondering if the reason that when you were coming here, you kind of thought, wait a minute, this is somewhere that I am actually going to have to. Yeah, you were creating relationships. You were creating atmospheres. You were creating all these things traveling. We do that, right? We make friends along the way. But they're friends that you're not going to have to see for much longer. You can you can keep everybody at arm's length, right? So do you feel like being back, and the reason you put so much fear on that was now, yes, you are going to have to show up as a good LDS woman. You are going to have to show up as a good Utah mom, which we all know has serious weight on it, right? And that kind of thing.
Yeah, I was just thinking, the word came to me, escape. Like, I remember telling myself throughout the military career, this is a 18-month vacation.
Yeah.
We're going to go do everything. Who wouldn't have fun going to see all the hot spots and different, highlights of the state that you're living in? But yeah, this moving here, let's see, we've been here 6 years, made me sit my pants down. We're set here for a bit, and take a look at myself and say, okay, let me give you an example. When we first got here, one of my boys had moved from a big 6A school in South Carolina, and he was going to be he was incredible. He was predominantly black, but he was an incredible white player, and the coaches were ready for him. Well, we moved here, and there were some issues, and he had to start at the bottom again, even though he was phenomenal. So we're walking into this small town of everybody knowing each other, and it's not necessarily so much about the talent or that, right? So anyways, bottom line, he turned to substance and different things. This was my first experience with a child going through that, one of my older kids. And I had, comments or people, one of my little boys came home, Mom, so-and-so can't come to our house because our brother does this, or Mom, because you're this kind of a mom, or, and that broke my heart, because I know who I am. And I had to stop and say, I'm either going to let this community run who I am and what kind of family I'm going to raise, or I'm going to do it with my husband and the Lord. And I chose internal, and it's been fabulous. I've been able to, it's still a road, but I've been able to sit and say, we're doing this for us, not for the community or what the neighbors think, and I've been able to connect with some amazing people here. There's good people everywhere. I love St. George, but it took a minute.
Yep. Oh, I know what you're talking about. And that's why it's funny. I had a comment, I don't know where it was, and it said I was too woke, and I about died because I'm about the least woke person on the planet, but whatever, whatever. Mm-hmm. And it was, what episode was it? Oh, it was my episode with my good friend Jennifer Nelson, and she was raised LDS. She is, her whole family's super LDS anyway, but she was talking about the work she does, and because she had gone through so much trauma, sexual abuse when she was a child, and the work that she's had to do on herself, and now she's created a whole community where she teaches this to people to become coaches, to teach this trauma, right? And it's called the DIG method, and she was talking about it, and it's and someone was saying I'm too woke, and it was basically made me feel like they were saying that she was too like voodoo-y, right? Too, what's the energy and the crystals and that, which she didn't talk about any of that. She didn't talk about any of that. And they were instantly, this predominant Christianity person shut it down, didn't even listen to the message, didn't even listen to what the whole thing was about, and shut it down instantly because of that. And I thought, who needs you? Goodbye, because you missed an entire episode of amazing content about this woman's story and how she made it through. And she was from that background. She still is part of that background, right? And they shut it down instantly, thinking that it was like what we're talking about right here is mind work. It's not voodoo. It's your physical mind, right? Mm-hmm. It's you have to work through things. You have to be able to get out of the bed every day and say, I'm going to do this today. Or you're going to not. You're going to physically say, I'm not going to do this today. Or, so it was really, really interesting to me, like you're saying, that these people have such views on things like that. And I know exactly what you're talking about. I grew up and we weren't allowed to be friends. I mean, not me. It wasn't me, but I know people that weren't allowed to be friends with the people in the neighborhood that weren't LDS. And I know that. So, and I'm not saying this is just LDS. I'm not saying that. These are people. People are humans. Humans make their own choices. This has nothing to do with whole religions or whole whatever.
It's in every culture.
It's in every culture. Yes.
Everything.
We are not unique. It happens in Italy. It happens in Spain. It happens everywhere. They don't like you because you're whatever. I don't even know. You shop at the other butcher, so we can't be friends, right? I don't know. I don't know what they deal with. But one thing that I took from you, and you couldn't know this because I've never said it, but one of our yoga classes, you said we were totally focusing on the body believes what the mind tells it. Mm-hmm. And now any of my sisters, any of my Revitalized Sisterhood that just heard me say that, they're like, oh, this is where you got it from, because I say it all the time. The body does what the mind tells it, right? If I'm going to stand there in yoga and try to do a tree pose and I'm like, oh, I have the worst balance, I'm not going to be able to do this, I'm not going to be able to do it. My body listens to what my mind's telling it. But if I'm like, oh, you got this, that's why people can run marathons. Like, oh my gosh, we have a friend. Oh, okay, I'll just go on a tangent here. We have this buddy that snuck into running the St. George Marathon. It was super funny. So our one friend had trained for it. I mean, just super trained for it, right? And then his buddy the night before was like, oh yeah, I'll come do that with you. And he's like, you can't do that. You cannot do it with me. You don't have a number. You're not registered, whatever. And my sister ended up making him a fake number, and they carted him up to the top in the middle of the night, right? So that he was ready to go in the morning. And he ran the marathon. He ran the whole St. George Marathon. He's never run a day in his life. Never. He's not physical. He doesn't work out. He doesn't do anything. He's just this guy that was like, sure, I'll do that with you. And he put in his headphones, listened to his iPod the whole time. And we get to the end and we're like, how on earth? And honestly, he did not finish that far behind our friend who had been training for this, right? And we're like, what on earth? He was calling us during it. He's just like, here I am. He had no idea where it went. He thought he was almost done when he came down Snow Canyon. Okay, no. Anyway, he had no idea. And he just and he was fine. Totally fine. Finished it, I think, an hour and a half behind his buddy. And it's mind over body. That was 100% the best example of me of, oh my gosh.
Right. Well, you think of the trying as lying, right? Like he wasn't just going to try to run the marathon.
Yeah, he's going to do it.
And it's cold up there.
Oh,
I've ran
so
that
cold.
Marathon. Yeah, it's so cold. And so for him that's a great story. I love that.
And he slept there, because they snuck him up there before any of the people got up there, which is early in the morning. So he was there the night before sleeping in that. And I'm like, holy cow, dude. That is one of the funniest stories we have. I think he is crazy.
Oh my goodness. Well, bite on this in the total opposite direction. Let me get this stat here. So psychologists say that we have 50 to 80,000 thoughts per day. 80% are negative and 90% are a repeat from yesterday. And so that's in general. I don't want to be sitting there, right? But if you just kind of assess your day and you're like, oh my God, for example, you were talking about your friend, was it Jen, that has done a lot of healing work?
Yes.
Right? And so I remember having to go through just, with that comment that someone said that was Christian, that, she was way off and things like that. I had to really work hard on the statement, I respect other people's opinions. And always, I need to respect the Christian, and I need to respect the girl with crystals, whatever, So it's really important to tap into that. And that's kind of what the mindset coaching does. It helps you too. So that 17-second feedback loop, I don't know if I don't think I mentioned
No, you haven't
it.
talked about that yet in this episode.
So, okay. So it really is just when you hold a thought for more, 17 seconds isn't long. And I don't know how this was Jeffrey Fannin, and he has a book called Commanding the Power of Thought. And 17 seconds, if we literally hold on to that thought, let's say it's a negative, a chemical change happens in our body, right? And then we feel the way that we're thinking, and we attract like thoughts. And then there's that automatic feedback loop that we're in. So we're feeling the way that we're thinking the way that we feel. You could take this either way, positive or negative, right? But then after 68 seconds, those thoughts become so powerful that they turn from energy to matter. And energy, our bodies don't stay stagnant. We're either positive or negative energy. It's constantly flowing within the body. And so, those thoughts turn to energy, and then the energy turns to matter after 68 seconds. And then we're attracting what we're thinking. So you talk about the word manifestation, law of attraction. It's real. I remember my husband talking when he was stationed at the Pentagon. He said he had listened when he was slugging up. I talked to you about that, where you just get in a stranger's car, and there was this talk tape on about manifesting what you want in your life. And he just sat back the whole ride and was just soaking all of that in his brain, his subconscious download. And he's like, I'm going to be the number one cost estimator in finance in the whole Air Force this year. And it happened. And I said, how did you do that? This was before I was into any of the mindset coaching. He says, I would envision it every day, all the time, and then I would be led to what to do next. And so you ask yourself, how do you create that? So when I talk about the unknown, wouldn't you like to, like, sometimes we make statements like, I'll be happy when the day's over. I'll be happy when my husband comes home off this trip. I'll be happy when. Well, that's future tense, right? That's never going to happen. So we stay in the present. And that's what my husband did. And he won that award. And I had no idea what he was doing in his mind. So when I went out to train in San Diego and I presented it to him, I said, okay, I'll do a level 2 and 3 if you think this is legit. He said, Lisa, I have done this. I believe it. Yes, keep going. This is incredible. So for an Air Force man over 20 years, military man, there's something about that. And so at some point, right, my dream one day is to take this to spouses in the military community, reintegrating like spouses coming back from deployment. I would love to give this to the soldiers. They have many modalities they can use medically, but I'm partial to this because you're doing the work yourself. Nobody knows you better than yourself. You know your subconscious programming, and you may not at first, but you'll start to tap in and ask, why do I always yell when this happens? So I can't remember who said, when you're upset, count to 10 and then, go ahead and make your decision on what you're going to do. That's consciously, okay, I'm going to consciously count to 10. And then you're going to either do that subconscious program or you're going to move a different direction. I don't have time to always count to 10, and I don't. So sometimes, most of the day, we live in a reactive state. And so just to ask yourself, again, back to that question, how's it going? How's it going for myself? And typically when you'd start to do the mindset work, for me, I wanted everything fixed right away. And so we teach the client like how to work on one thing at a time. And it was really hard for me because in my first statement that I wanted to balance on, I wanted to be a good mom, a good wife, a good work her out of the home, provide all these things. And I wanted them all in one balance. And that's not how it works. So if you just take one thing that's at the forefront that's really affecting you, I mean, if people don't know where to start, I say, let's go with topics. Let's go with your physical. Let's go with emotional. Let's go spiritual. Let's go social. Let's go, you can start naming names and relationships. And so sometimes people really don't know where to start. So I kind of help them, get that process going. And then when we do go into this process, there's a certain way to talk throughout, when you're doing the brain balancing, you need to be, before we put it into process. So what we do, we're opening up the corpus callosum. It's the brain bridge. So we want to open that up, right and left hemispheres. We really want them to start working together. So you may cross a little, you may tap, you may close your eyes and visualize. There's so many different things, but what it's doing, it's slowing your heart rate down. It's getting you into a really good state where you can focus and concentrate. And then you set an action with that. But what I was going to say is, when you're setting yourself up to, go through a balance, 5 components. You want to talk present tense. You want to talk short, meaningful, positive, first person.
Like I will be happy. No, we want I am happy.
You got it.
Right. Now. That's happening now.
It's happening now. And the conscious mind is like, I'm not there. It's the reasoning. It's the decision maker. That makes sense, right? The conscious mind is. So sometimes when I tell a person, like, it's really interesting too. When let's just take the word forgiveness, that elevates our just whole self, right? If we can just forgive somebody, it feels so good internally if you're really doing that work. But I'll have clients that say, I can't go there yet. Like, I can't go there. Because why? We talked about protective, right? We're protecting our programming. We're comfortable here. We think we're comfortable, but we're not. So again, open and curious. If you're going to do this work, you need to be open with yourself. You need to be curious about what's happening, because if you get upset at yourself, why am I feeling this way? I mean, think about diving into some things with your thoughts with kids. Nobody wants to bring that up. I'm feeling this way about one of my children. I'm embarrassed. I'm ashamed. I shouldn't. But you are. So what are you going to do with it? It's really tapping into the internal. It's powerful.
It's like holding mirrors in front of your faces. We talk about that a lot, about things in relationship points of view. Like I think I did an episode on defensiveness and why do we get so defensive? And it's basically because you're holding a mirror up to someone else's face or to your own face, or, you're basically digging and twisting a knife into a soft spot where you already knew there was a problem. And that's why you get defensive, because you're already acknowledged that there was a problem there and you see it, but now someone else has recognized that in you. So you get defensive. You don't want to think about it. You want to shut it down. And that's, it's the same thing. You have to acknowledge what's there before you can go forward. I'm going to come back to how has that been working for you? Because Ryan says that a lot in The Order of Man. He says that a lot because that's why he created the Iron Council. I say that a lot in the Revitalized Womanhood because that's why we created the Revitalized Sisterhood. It's people that are stuck in their own comfort zones and do not want to get out but we've created communities that say, how's that been working for you? So guess what? You're going to do it my way now. You're not going to like all of it. You're going to be very uncomfortable. He says, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. That's the new philosophy, because that's where it all starts, is how's that been working out for you? Yeah. So if you think that you're going to fix anything by doing the same thing you've been doing over and over and over again, That's insanity. That is legitimately the definition of insanity. So you need
Yeah.
to get in, shake it up, try something. And if that doesn't work for you, try something else. And if that doesn't work for you, try something else. We are constantly moving, growing. We're not just stuck in cement with our 2 feet in cement and we can't go anywhere. We can't do anything. We can't make decisions for ourselves. You have to make a decision for yourself, right? It's like, I'm going to bring this up again, but I said that to Leah in that episode. I said, I'm going to be an enigma for you. And then at the end of her talking, I was like, oh, wait, no, I'm not an enigma. You're going to look at exactly what my hair follicle test says. And you're going to say, yeah, that's exactly what I expected because you're not taking care of this X, Y, and Z. And what do you want to do about that? Are you okay living in this kind of, I'm fine, or do you want to be better? So you have to ask yourself, do you want a whole 180? Make it all better, great, whole 180? Or are you okay with 20%? Are you okay with 30%? Are you okay with 5%? You have to decide for yourself what kind of change you want to make and what's going to be okay for you, right? If I sit and complain and complain and complain over and over and over about the same thing, I can't do that, right? And I can't listen to anybody do that. If someone's going to come to me and say, I can't do this because of this, I'm going to say, okay, let's adjust it. Let's figure something else out. And then if they come to me the next week and say, it's still bad, and I'm going to say, did you do the things we talked about? No.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
that's
then
the key point.
I don't want to hear about it anymore because you didn't change it. And so when you brought that to us, the actions, it did change some things. So I will say, and I want to come back to this with you because I think we've talked to you about so many different facets of you and your life now in these 2 different episodes, but I want to come back to this one as you as a mother because I struggle with it. And I've actually brought this up. I think I brought it up at the retreat with my ladies after you left because one of my actions was just like what you said, whenever I see my son, any of my sons, whenever they come in the room, I'm going to hug them just randomly out of nowhere. I'm just going to walk up and hug them. And it's because I feel like it's such a weird feeling, but I feel like when they're babies, I can play with them. I can be silly with them. I can cuddle them and snuggle them and love them and do all the things. I am in my element when they're little, right? But then they kind of turn into this new person when they're growing out of it, right? And now I feel like I have to be firm with you. I have to teach you how to be a good person. I have to nag you to do this. I have to nag you to do this. I have to, whatever. And I become this mean mom, this not fun mom. I am not the fun parent. We all know that, but I become this mean person that they don't want to be around because when they're around me, all I'm doing is your room clean? Is your homework done? Did you brush your teeth? Why didn't you do your hair today? I'm this person with them. And it's like, why do I take all of that responsibility on myself when they have a dad who is teaching them by example how to be a man, right? Mm-hmm. He doesn't, I shouldn't have to nag them. Like he is leading them by example. I am lucky enough to have, and after you left, we were all sitting at the table and I did have this whole realization of they have a dad for that. He's doing that job. And it was after Trina as well, talking about our femininity and where is it? And it was like, I need to be nurturing them. I need to be. And I think we come across that line where women don't want to be a helicopter mom. We don't want to be a overbearing mom. We don't want to smother them and make them babies, right? But guess what? I don't need to worry about that because luckily, I don't have to be the dad. He will take them to get in the pond up in Pine Valley and get salamanders, right? He will take them hiking up our mountain and go build fires. He will do those things for me. So luckily, I don't have to. So that's where my action came in. So that's what I wanted to ask you. I put, come back to relationship with your sons. So is that where you were? Is that how you felt with, did you feel what I'm saying? Is that why you felt when this child was coming in the room and your back would spasm? And, is it because of that kind of same relationship you were building with him?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I have 4 boys. And so first of all, I want to just say with everything that you had mentioned, no child will ever be unscarred. coming out of their childhood.
Mm-hmm.
It just is. And I remember the phases I went through as a parent. My first two kids were dressed perfectly and hair combed, and
Yes.
I was a checklist mom, and that's how it was. Anyways, with these boys, I feel like, well, let me give you an example. Just with reprogramming, you want to see progress, right? And so I remember after doing this for a few years on myself, the other day over Christmas break, your oldest is 10?
11. Mm-hmm.
11. Okay, so Sam.
Sam, yeah. Yep. They were on the
Okay,
football team together.
so my youngest boy had gotten this Lego set out and was just putting it together and was so focused. The old mom would have said, he's content. I bought him some Legos. He's fully engaged. He's single task focused. He doesn't need me here. And I would have felt fine about that. Then the mom now with baby 6, right? I just laid on the couch, turned my head, watched him build the Legos, and I got up to leave for just a minute. He said, "Where are you going?" He knew I was there. He loved my presence. I was making, he would show me each little piece. Look what I'm like, that is incredible. So what I'm saying is, if I wouldn't have had the tools to stop and slow down and know how to develop stronger relationships, it took me just sitting on the couch. We talk about this, right? It just took me laying on the couch, telling myself to relax. It's Christmas break. I had a million things I could have been doing. And I literally, for the first time in years, just sat there and said, I'm happy. I'm happy to be watching him build the Legos, and everything else can wait. And he knew I was there, and he felt important. And so, I don't know if that makes any sense.
Oh my gosh, I had a member, she had surgery done on her. And so she's been down. And I said, "How was your holidays?" And she said, it was different. It was really different because she is that kind of a person where she's got to be doing all the things. And she said, this holiday, I had to sit. I couldn't do anything. And I actually really got to just enjoy my family. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. Yeah. That's so amazing, right? I hope that you remember that feeling and you can revisit that feeling next time you start, when your leg's healed and you start trying to do all the things again.
Yep.
You can remember that all the things don't matter.
Exactly. Yeah. Just to have those little nuggets, those are just tools to really pay attention to. But back to the 4 boys, I did want to tell you, I've got 4 grown children and 2 are younger, but they maybe not every parent, but it's been our experience, my husband and I, that they will come back to you with issues. Like when I was a kid, I remember this happening, and it's their reality. That's another thing with the mindset coaching that I love, is if I didn't have those tools, I wouldn't have known how to let them express how they feel. I would say, "You did? Well, I don't remember doing that. I remember doing that." Right? You see the contention? And so it's taught me how to build relationships and let each child, especially the boys, let them express, let them be. And I remember my oldest boy mentioning some things that really just pierced my heart, and I felt like I'm a horrible mom. But because of this information and this process, I said, hold on a minute, you're going to self-destruct. If you can't sit there, I think one of my goal statements, I told you, I respect other people's opinions. I had to respect the opinion, and I had to do the work with that. And
couldn't get defensive.
Could not get defensive. And here's the deal. The work that seems the longest, the hardest, the road that seems the longest and the hardest is always the best way. it starts out long and hard, but just like me being able to shift and say, okay, I'm going to sit, relax, and watch my 10-year-old now. Those are the programs that I want in my head. They're authentic, they're real, they're relationship building. Those are what I want. And they'll come more and more as we just sit and do the work.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what else did you ask about the boys? I
I
don't know if I
yeah,
covered
I mean, yeah, absolutely. Yes, you said it.
what
You
you were
nailed it. You said
asking.
you've got
I
to
can't
let them
remember your
be, and
question.
that's me too. I look at him and he's becoming this little person with this little personality, and it's so different from what he used to be. He used to be such a little, I don't necessarily know that he was a people pleaser. He was just so good. So, I mean, gosh, like the best child anybody could ever have. And he still is. He's still the best child. But now he's starting to have attitude. He's starting to be sassy. He's starting to pick up things, thinking he's hilarious by talking back. And, mom, he's starting to get these little things. And I correct him because I'm like, stop doing that. But I shouldn't. He's not doing anything bad. It's irritating to me. But why? Why am I trying to push on him what I think he should be? He needs to be developing who he is, and I need to just be there and let it happen. And that's exactly what I'm letting it's like you said, the third one, he just runs the show. He does whatever he wants, and we all think it's adorable. It's like he's beating holes in the walls with his toys, and we're like, oh, that's so good. Don't do that, but you're so cute. We're just like, oh, we love you. You're terrifying, but we love you, But with the first two, it wasn't that way. It was and we kind of had to be because we were traveling. Mm-hmm. So we were and we didn't have all this extra stuff. We were very in the car, whatever fit in this car, that's all we had, each other and whatever was in this car. And, so it's totally different. Now we've got this one that just is all over the place, and we just let him do whatever he wants. And so it's so interesting to me that why can I not let the two older ones just be? Just let them be. Like, they do not need interference from me. Just let it be. And it will make me happier. It will make them happier. It will make dad happier because he's not listening to me argue with my kids, right? It'll make just a happier house. And it's being intentional and saying, let it happen. Like, let them load the dishwasher how they're going to load it. It does not matter, right? Let them hang their clothes up on their own hangers and they look like, oh my gosh, I can't even believe that's staying on the hanger and it's shoved in the closet, but let it happen. Okay. They are learning. They can do this. They can do things for themselves and let it happen. And that's been so hard for me, but it has been a big change in our family since I started this. But even since you came up, and that was my action was to hug them when they came in the room.
Yeah.
So
I have a friend, I think she had 6, we were stationed in Idaho at the time, and she had 6 daughters and then had a 7th son or whatever. But I remember her, because we were all in the courtyard, we could see each other's like kitchen window, and you'd know if someone's light was on at 12 o'clock or, we could see. It was just a tight little community, and her light would always be on. But I remember her saying something to me that I'll paraphrase it. My home is not a Better Homes and Garden, place. I am raising children. I am not here to be on the front page of a magazine. And she had order, and they had to. There were so many kids in that home. But like you said, I've had dishes sit in the sink all the way through towards the counter for about 3 days because one of the boys did not do the dishes. It was so hard for me at first, but what lessons are we teaching them, right? So he had all this, and I said, I can't cook because I don't have these tools. So you're going to have to do something for yourself. So it's these lessons that we teach them. But here's the thing, we don't want to be in fight or flight in these situations all the time where we're just so upset about it. If we're going to let them hang their clothes the way that they hang them, again, it's a 17-second feedback loop. If you can look at that and say, amazing that he's learning these skills, he's going to be an incredible husband. Like, just always push to the positive. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying that I'm a completely 100% positive person, but I
No,
know how
none
to
of us
flip
are.
the narrative now. We
Hmm.
know how to. So if you can learn how to flip it, and we want to talk not about the external, about ourselves. Let's talk first person, me, I, present tense right here, short, meaningful, all of those things. So yeah, it's been a pretty amazing journey. And the other thing I wanted to mention, yes, we have resources and books and we can read and do all these checklists and things, but if we don't get in, it's like a computer system. If you don't get in and
Program.
wire, whatever, reprogram it,
Hmm.
it's going to run the same program.
Yep.
So if you can think of it like that, yeah.
Well, and it's also, I love if you're doing it yourself, great. At least that's a step. If you're doing it yourself, yes. But for me, if I'm doing it myself, guess what? It's like going to the gym. How bad the classes are all screwed up and I have to go to the 8:30 classes now. So if I can't go to your class or if I can't go to the Monday class, there's nothing else I can do. So I have to be responsible to do my own thing. I won't. I won't do it. I'm not being held accountable. No one's there showing me that I need to be doing this. I'm not competing with all the other women, like I need the accountability. I don't have the discipline to be able to do that. So when you're in communities or when you find a coach like you, when you reach out to people, it's being able to have someone say, no, I don't think that's what you mean by that. Or, you know what I mean? They call you out on it. You have to have
Hmm.
people call you out on it. Some people do. Some people, maybe they're amazing and they can do it on their own, but I can't. I need other people. And that's why the sisterhood, we're holding each other accountable, right? Like when you held me accountable after the retreat and you said, have you checked in or, the accountability partners? And I did. Right after you said that, I was like, you know what? I haven't yet and I'm going to. And I did. I sent a message out to all of them and I said, I'm checking in who actually did their actions. And they got back with me. But that was, why are you doing, if you set a goal to say, I've got one that's like, I want to quit being bitchy to my husband.
Hmm.
Great. Let's work on that. Let's work on why this poor man is sitting there minding his own business and you come in and just, yep, 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 yep. Let's figure that out. And I said, I'm going to hold you accountable because I'm really curious to see how this is going to go. And that is what for me, that's what I need. I couldn't do it
Hmm.
alone. So for you to have your coaching group and for, like I said, I'm looking into the Enneagram coaching and I'm looking into, Trina for the languages of the men. And, I'm looking for people that will hold me accountable. And that's where the
Absolutely.
most work is going to get done, I believe.
Sounds like you have an amazing community that, to me, I feel like is on the right path because you're looking inward rather than outward.
Yes,
And
2023,
it's
focusing on me.
on me. And that's so easy to blame your life on the external forces.
Oh my gosh,
If
yes.
my husband were home more,
Mm-hmm.
if he would just do the things I've asked him to do. So anytime, I've mentioned this at your retreat, anytime you're angry, frustrated, sad, depressed, all of these negatives, saying, God, this shouldn't be happening, or, oh, I'm so bitchy to my husband, or whatever it is, you are literally staring at a closed door.
Oh, yes, I love that. That's why I wanted that paper. That is exactly why I was looking for that paper. So explain the
Yeah.
closed door.
It's just a woman that is pulling. She's got her foot up on this door, holding the two handles, and just face is so distraught and pulling, and it will not open, right? You're staring at something that's closed. So when we're talking about this shouldn't be happening, well, what are you going to do about it? And so, right, we talk about the victim mode. And if you're going to stay in the victim mode, it's tough for me to help you. It's not saying that you can't feel sad. You can't have those emotions. You can't feel angry, but do you want to stay there? And how long do you want to stay there? You can stay there as long as you want. And that's the thing I love about the mindset coaching is that all I'm doing is facilitating and giving you these balances. You're coming up with everything. You're coming up with the action. Because I think as human beings, at least for me, maybe it's just my personality, I really don't like people to tell me what to do. I don't want someone else's prescription. I mean, I say that lightly. I will listen and do research and take what I need from other people, but ultimately, like, we know, I don't think we trust ourselves enough. And so if we can stay open and curious about who we are and what we need, it's the information and those actions will come. We just have to sit and listen to ourselves, And one of the actions may be get a hold of Gina and get into the Revitalized Womanhood, or go see this other gal for supplements or whatever. But at least you feel like, everyone likes to feel like you're running your own show, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't want anyone else running. That's like I asked you those few questions at the beginning.
Yep, absolutely.
So if we can feel and control, right?
Does your environment control you?
Yes, it's liberating to feel like I'm running my life. It might not be perfect, but I know how to, get myself back. So, yeah, I think the biggest thing, the takeaway, if people could know that what's been wired a certain way can definitely be rewired a different way. We're not set to be one way the rest of our lives. Like, there is hope, right? We're the neuroplasticity of our brains. Like, we can change, and it's fascinating. There's a lot of neuroscience coming out, right? That, hey, you can rewire and refire new pathways. Like, I never knew that.
Yeah,
As a young mom, there's so much information that's coming out. You don't have to. You can go the medical route. I'm a supplement too, but if that's not working, there's other ways, to tap in. So stop. I would just tell your sweet ladies, just stop fighting so hard. Sit down for a minute and ask, how's it going? And if it's not going well, what do you want it to look like? And then you just start from there. What do you want it to look like? And then, go from there.
I took down so many notes. I think I'm going to use these notes in our call tonight. And I want to get you connected with another gal I recorded with to look like, sorry, you guys, I cannot multitask. Here we go. You should, my notes, it seriously gives Rick anxiety to see because they're like all over the place because I run out of room. And so I draw arrows to it. It's like a disaster. My notes are just the clutter and chaos in my brain manifested onto paper. Anyway, Dr. Alice Atalanta, I recorded with her. You have got to listen to that episode. It was amazing. She is an amazing human being. Wow. Oh my gosh. She is a perfect example of, I think I've talked to you about her anyway, but she is the most amazing example of we can do anything. We can do anything. She was like an MMA fighter. She was a wife in New York, living in one of those doorman buildings, could go buy whatever she wanted. She went to a private school back east with the girls, and she's like, if you thought they were a stereotype, no, that's exactly the kind of people they are. And she's like a published author. She's got like 3 master's degrees, 2 bachelor's degrees. I mean, she's just like, whoa, okay. You need to get in connection with her, because when you were talking about the closed door, she talks about your small door. You've either got a big door or small door. Like if you're a Kennedy, you have a big door. If you want to go into politics, obviously you've got a big door. Doesn't mean you don't have a door if you're not a Kennedy. You may be a child in Africa that wants to come to America and play soccer or whatever it is. You have a door. We all have a door. So I love that you're talking about it in the way of mindset. She's talking about it as well in the way of mindset, but you're talking about it like to put that closed door constantly. You're beating your head up against a wall because it's a closed door, closed door, closed door. Figure out a way to open it. Figure out a way to say, wait a minute, this isn't working. Figure it out and open it. It's probably a push, not a pull.
Yeah, that's right.
Just push on it now instead of pulling on it. Anyway, I thank you so much for recording another episode with me. Listeners, oh my gosh, Lisa, bless her heart. I'm trying to get everybody in before we leave for Costa Rica. And I'm like, oh, when can you record with me? Come record with me. And then we recorded that episode and I'm like, no, that was too good. Okay, now we have to record again. And she's like, oh, okay. And I'm like, and it has to be this week.
It's been great. It's been a lot of fun. So.
I really appreciate it. I'm so glad you could do this with me, and I thank you.
Well, thank you for having me.
Oh, is there anywhere you want people to reach out to you? That was my question. Duh, Gina, check in.
Yeah, no, you're good. I think probably the best right now is they can just send a text to me, 334-717-6118, and it's Lisa Brown.
That's your coaching line?
Yep.
I love it. That's amazing. We'll put it in the show notes.
Alabama area code.
I love it.
Yep.
I love it. All right. Thank you. Thank you, my beautiful friend. I appreciate you being here with me. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
We'll see you later.
All right. Bye-bye.